of advices, and there's a lot of advice that we'll be giving in this talk, a lot of stories, and some general guidelines that could maybe lead to your writing success. And so we've got someone from UW, top 10 in research with us. I don't know if that's UW Washington or UW Wisconsin, where I went to school. It could be another UW for all I know. But if you could let us know in the chat window, then we know which UW it is. Oh, I didn't turn on my camera yet, so. Hello, everyone. Let me try this again. My name's Curt Bonk. My colleague Meina and I will go through some writing guidelines and tips and stories with you all here in the next hour. Recently, we gave a talk to Thailand and to China jointly. It was a shorter such talk. But so I've added to that one last night and also just in the last half hour. So they're getting pieces of 3 different talks that we've done. And Meina will be giving some advice along the way. We got Washington with us. Okay, thank you, Leslie. Good to have you with us here. I see someone from Edmonton. We've got Renee in here from Bloomington. Hi, Renee. How did you find out about this? I didn't even advertise it. Somewhere in the ether. Thanks for coming, Renee. Could you put in the chat window where you're housed? What organization, institution, if you're independent, working on your own, if you're not working and just hanging out with us this afternoon or this morning. If you're on the far west coast in Seattle, it's still morning there. She's still drinking her Starbucks coffee, where it's headquartered. So yes, and it's the 3rd time I think I'm presenting that one of these micro-learning sessions that that Meina has arranged. And so I'm delighted to have a 3rd try at this. I mentioned to her the book would be coming out at some point. She says, please come back when the book comes out and tell us about it. So let's see, I'm going to share my screen with you all. And it's called the G3 of writing tips. I'm not sure if that's the best title, but it's a title. Let me see if I can get this. Okay. So gentle guidelines, great stories, and gigantic scholarly gains. And given we have an hour or so, we'll probably skip through a couple things because there are literally 100 to 200 writing tips in this talk alone. And I toyed around with including some for people who might be doing a dissertation. I've got a whole series for people who are doing dissertations, but I decided not to include them in this one. Another alternative title could be Jumpstarting Scholarly Success, Suggestions, Simplifications, and Celebrations. So this is, in a way, we're jumpstarting you today. There's articles in the Chronicle of Higher Ed, Inside Higher Ed, The Guardian, and other places about writing. During the past decade, we've seen a plethora of articles addressing the issue of writing. And among those, Rebecca Schulman's monthly pieces related to how to become more productive. And one of her pieces is titled, The Hardest Part About Writing is Restarting. And that's from a few years ago. And that is true. Once I give up, and once Meina gives up on a writing episode, it's hard to circle back and address it, you know. Meina, I don't think you've ever given up on anything, but did you ever delay a project more than a year in terms of your writing?
Most of the time not, maybe some of them, yeah.
Most of the time not, and she's been very successful in publishing dozens of articles in the past 3 years at Wayne State University. She is among the most productive people I know, so she's a good one for me to team up. You'll have a more senior person today and a more junior, although at Indiana, they don't like us to use the word junior at all. We're banned from using the word junior, so I will say less experienced or more a younger person and a more experienced person. How's that? And so one of Rebecca's articles is titled Step Away from the Delete Button. Some people get overly enamored with perfectionism and making sure everything is correct. But if you don't have words on the screen somewhere, you can panic and go into a cycle where you procrastinate and you let it lapse because you've hit the delete button too often. And you can just save that text, save that text, because you got to realize, at least Rebecca says, you have to realize that the first ideas you write will not necessarily be excellent ones, but they'll be something. She says, there are no shortcuts in writing a manuscript, that there are advices that you can take along the way, but get those ideas down, even if they're awful ideas, at least you got something down on paper. It's going to take 6, 7, or 8 revisions to polish everything. It's going to take a bit of stamina on your part, intellectually, physically, mentally, and emotionally, before it's going to be ready for publication. It can be messy at times. You might not have the right word at times. And so thesaurus is to help. Meina, how many times do you edit a paper before you submit to a journal?
I did many times.
Okay, your internet is cutting in and out, but I heard many times. So, okay, so yeah. She says, if you want, you can create a routine. Writing for 25 minutes, 1 to 3 times, 1 to 3 times a day for a week, and don't delete anything. Just keep writing, and you'll find that you'll be closer to completion than you were at the beginning of the week. You can bracket things. She likes to bracket things as messages to herself, saying, insert references here, and additional sentences might be needed here. A transition could be used here. It helps you calm your inner voice that says it's not so good, because you have a message to yourself. You might annotate to yourself. You might color code your messages to yourself. You might indicate in blue or in red or in pink. I indicate in highlights in pink or red. Maybe I have to delete this. I indicate in yellow that maybe I might delete it, maybe not. I need to expand, I need to improve it. I highlight in green things I don't want to delete, that are things I'm really happy with. So color might help, annotations might help, insertions might help. You avoid that habit of deleting. So breaking yourself of that habit will move you on the road towards generation of ideas. Trust your research, she says, trust your ideas. Avoid setting ridiculously high standards that no one in the right mind could accomplish. You have to bring down your expectations a tad. I worked with a faculty member once that would only publish in the top journals in the field, and she almost didn't get tenure because of that. She didn't accept anything second tier or third tier along the way. Rachel Tour, who writes for Chronicle of Higher Ed as well, says you have time only if you make it a priority. Productive writers don't make excuses. When they start to have feelings of self-doubt, I can't do this, it's too hard, I'll never be good at this, they tell themselves to stop feeling sorry for themselves. There are no magic bullets, there are no incantations, there are no magic spells. You have to set aside time to write. You have to tell yourself you're a talented writer and be confident, but no overconfident. A writer, she says, a writer that she knows likes to say that over the years that he has been trained his family not to expect him to show up for dinner or lunch or breakfast, that they know, that he's in the writing flow and he can't break the flow. You have to be willing to seem like you're narcissistic and arrogant, but it's just that's your space, your time. I know Meina takes her phone and doesn't accept messages between probably 9 to 6 or 7 during the day, so she can function and write. Is that right, Meina? That's how you focus?
Yeah, that's correct. I always mute my phone.
And so, it's sometimes frustrating for me to have an emergency. So, and just now she had an emergency to try and get a hold of me. Where was I? I was changing this talk. That's where I was. I was adding this stuff. This is the part I added to it, some of this. So I uploaded new slides, Manisha, into the Dropbox. Hopefully they got there. So there's a longer file. She says that 6 ways to beat writer's block. You work up a sweat, meaning exercise once in a while. Take a trip and go to someplace different that you hadn't been to before. Be willing to accept a bad draft. She uses a swear word there, a crappy draft of a paper. Be willing to accept that. You could get stuck along the way. Remind yourself that even the best writers get stuck from time to time. She also says, oh, this is Manuel Whitaker, another person for the Chronicle of Higher Ed. And you'll notice the Chronicle of Higher Ed has many articles. She says that, you should work on multiple projects at once, and review potential publishing routes, the possible journals, the possible publishers for a book. Have a writing plan in place, a schedule in place, a timeline in place. And that's be a flexible timeline, because you might not meet those timelines. Some people set word goals, like Meina might say, I want 500 words a day minimum, or I might say 1,000 words a day. So, but flexible. Maybe some days you hit it and some days you have more. She says, read more and edit as you go. Keep reading, because from your reading comes ideas. From discussion with others comes ideas. And then when you accomplish something, reward your writing, whether it's a favorite juice that you might have sitting next to you, elderberry honey here, or it's a tea that I might have sitting here, or just a glass of water. So notice I have 3 things sitting next to me to reward myself with, but it's usually an ice cream cone or dilly bar. Leslie Leonard from Inside Higher Ed says that's what her article was about, rewarding your writing. Track your writing, have realistic expectations of what you're going to produce. And if you do produce that, then maybe you have a cup of coffee, or have a movie that you go to, or watch a movie on Netflix, or have a massage, go to the spa, or sleep in a little longer that day, get an extra hours of sleep, and maybe have some randomness in the awards that you give out to yourself and to others. But find ways to have goals that you set, maybe in your electronic planners, or in my daily planners. I have a set of goals, and then when I meet the goals, I have awards that I give to myself. And she also says, let your rough drafts be rough. That's what they're meant to be starter text. We have to move into writing starter text and then improve it, then refine it, then share it before we ever publish it or anything like that. So, and she also says, make the experience as enjoyable as possible. For me, it's wearing fancy clothes. For her, it might be eating delicious treats of something or another, or taking a day off. Find those writing moments in the day where you can be accomplishing something. Maintain your focus. If you are writing a dissertation, find ways to maintain the focus, such as finding that 15 minutes a day to write and not worry about the grammar. Getting focused by running and relaxing and meditating, and turning off Meina's smartphone, not answering the emails that are coming in over and over and over again. Scheduling all your meetings in bulk, so you do all your meetings on Fridays, or maybe all your meetings will be on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, and then you free up the rest of the time. I often will meet people back to back to back to back, and then I free up a full day. On another day, I can just be writing. She also talks about this notion of park on a downhill slope. What she means by that is when you stop writing, to try and leave something easy for you to do when you come back to the writing. In effect, you're going downhill, and it's going to be easy for you to jump back into the paper with something you didn't write so far, but it'd be easy to add. For instance, writing a journal article about research, for me, writing limitations is relatively easy. What were the problems or limitations? So I might not write the limitations till I come back the next day, and I start with that. And I start with what the easier things are, like future directions or limitations, not necessarily something really difficult. And then you can gain momentum one thing at a time. Use checklists, she says, and visualize completion. You'll notice that I have checklists all the time. I have checklists. And so you can use them. Think about your draft pre-writing. Ask questions about the audience. Who reads that journal? Who will read that book? Ask the editors, ask the publishers, and then read a bit and restate the audience to the editor and see if you got it right. Scan the publications that have been disseminated or published in recent years or recent months from that journal or that book, author, editor. and publisher. Look at the news and what's being published in the news. And then in terms of what you're writing, ask others to read your first drafts and your second drafts. Print it out and read through it yourself. Read it aloud and see how it sounds. It may sound good when you type it, but when you hear it spoken back or have a computer speak it back to you. I know that one of the most fun activities I have is listening to my words from a computer speaking them. And then revise, and use a thesaurus. I use Collins thesaurus. It's a British thesaurus. It has more words than American thesauruses, or at least more words I don't know. So I have to always learn something if I use Collins. And I like to hyperlink to a word and then hyperlink to another word, hyperlink to yet another word before I make a selection. I don't go with usually the first word that comes up in a thesaurus. I often will link onto other words as well. And so if you're writing for a diverse audience, you have to think about, their backgrounds. Sometimes the jokes that you're using might be offensive. They might not be understandable because people might not use that kind of language. They might not celebrate the same kinds of events or sporting kinds of news or other things. The metaphors, analogies, and idioms and colloquialisms might not be understandable in another culture. You notice the book on the bottom there, Adding Tech Variety. This book is free. Put that in here just about 10 minutes before coming on the air here. It's at tech-variety.com. It's got 100 ways to teach online. This spring, I will have 2 new books coming out based on that book, including this book for English teachers called Engaging Online Language Learners, a Practical Guide. That's from TESOL Publishing. And then a free book, this one's not free, then another free book from the Commonwealth of Learning in Vancouver, Canada, at col.org. They will have they will publish a short version of the Adding Tech Variety book. Adding Tech Variety is available for free in English and in Chinese. It's got 100 activities for teaching online. The new book will be much shorter, but will have tutorials and so forth. So when you're publishing, whether it's a journal or a book or a news article, you have to look at who's the intended audience of that journal or book or news store, magazine. Is there a match between what you're writing and what the journal or magazine or book might be looking for? What's the turnaround time? What's the expectations? And are you familiar with the editorial board or any of the editors, chief editors or the reviewers? If you know someone, write to them about the journal and ask them questions about it. Start subscribing to news feeds, and not too many to overwhelm, but at least to update you with what's important in the news within your field. Look for themes across the documents that you're getting every day. Save a few, take screenshots of the current news and save the URLs of them so you can look it up later. Every day I'm saving a couple of articles I'm reading in the news, and I go back through those when I want to look for what are trends that are happening. We'll look at what people are sharing in Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and other places. Write to other people for what they think are current trends and topics. Attend webinars and keynotes on breaking or current kinds of news stories so you can find out what's happening and so forth. But avoid those predatory journals that say you can publish in our journal within a week or within 2 weeks or tomorrow. People are probably writing to you all the time about these problematic, what's called predatory journals. They might ask for a submission fee. They might suggest or promise they can publish it fast. They might, have nobody editorial board at all. Actually, just might be 1 or 2 people, and he's just sending your money, and it's a sham. So be careful at the same time is what my point is there. So we're going to go into writing difficulties and challenges for early career, which Meina is going to start us off with. And we'll be going through a series of things here. Then I'll come back. Then we got other writing tips. We got a whole series of things yet here. Maybe I should pause for a second. And in the chat window, if you could put down, if you I'll stop this for just a second. Do we have any questions or comments in here? Maybe I should say, what's one thing you've heard so far that you agree with or that you've learned so far? What's one thing you agree with or learned so far from what we said? The checklist idea. Okay, yeah. The checklist. There's an article called The Checklist. I think it was in the New Yorker. It's a great article. And thesaurus, checklists, rewards, all these things are supplemental to helping us succeed. You have to be aware of those evil predatory journals. You have to be focused, but yet not so focused that you are unflexible. We have to make sure you're flexible in your writing systems that you design. Good points, Dawn, Karen, Manisha, Leslie. Manisha again? Okay, I'm gonna let, keep writing, keep writing, Renee. She's my advisee, so. Okay, we'll go back to the slides here. And so again, Meina has been successful, but it's not always been a success. There's writing difficulties that she faces all the time, that Renee faces in writing her dissertation all the time, that I face all the time. So let me give you some insights here from the perspective of a relatively newer faculty member, Meina.
Thank you, Dr. Bonk, for the introduction. So as an early career faculty member at Wayne State University, I reflect on my writing experiences in 6 parts. So first is setting goals, second is to make a strategic plans, third is to reflect on your research and writing. The fourth is related to collaboration. The fifth is related to professional development. The last one is about research direction and research lines. So first about writing goals. So since I came here, each year we usually have annual review, and also after that I also make the plan for the year. So what I should achieve in this year, for example, how many projects I should finish or work on. Once I have the writing goals, the next slide, please, Curt. And then as usually set a strategic plan. So for example, for this academic project and time this project should be finished, kind of make the goal into the weekly and daily strategic plan, and connect that work very well again. So next is once sometimes you may have several projects working on, or sometimes you may finish one project and finish one manuscript, and then you can reflect on your writing. So what are the areas that you can improve to make the writing process more kind of fluent, or the collaboration more coherently. So the fourth point is about collaborating. If you notice my research publication, a majority of my research involves group collaboration. So I usually collaborate with, when I was a student, I collaborate with advisors and my friends or colleagues at Indiana University. Since I came to Wayne State as a faculty member, I try to build new collaborations with my colleagues in my university, and also I also build collaborations through conference. For example, there are AERA conferences and other AECT related conferences. So these are the ways that I work on collaboration. Maybe Dr. Bonk want to talk about these slides.
You might go back to the strategic plans. When you mentioned strategic planning, you're fading in and out. So just make just a brief comment on that first.
So sorry. So my internet always like doesn't work very well. So for the strategic, at the beginning, I said we should have some goals for your academic year's writing or research. Once you have the goals, you may make the goals like segment your goals. So maybe during a specific time you want to work on research design, certain time you want to work on data collection or data analysis, and the other time you want to work on the writing part. So make the plan for maybe each 3 months or each month or each week. or even each day you can list your checklist, what you want to, or to-do list for the day. So that's about the strategic plan. Thank you. Curt.
And that relates to number one here, clarifying authorship ahead of time. You're not always going to be first author or second author. Sometimes you're third, fourth, or fifth, and that's okay. You shouldn't be first author in everything, you know, or you're gonna kill yourself, you know, straining your brain's gonna overwork and be overtaxed. Trying to utilize your talents. You know, for me, it's a talent I like to write the ending of articles. I like to write the limitations and future directions. And sometimes when I'm first author, I write the beginnings. You know, you have to figure out where you fit within the article, where you fit within the group. Tell your members of your team where you might be strong. I'm really stronger at proofreading, editing, drafting, revising, changing, adding. Once a draft's written, I can spend a day and I can quickly write 1,000 words to add to it, and I change it and I get the scope and I sculpt it. Writing the first draft is probably the hardest part, right? So you have to be clear about who's going to take what part and when you're going to turn it in. And then you have to provide maybe a time date stamp on each piece, because it might be May, 9th at 10 a.m. I've got it. And Meina's got it May 9th at 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. And Renee gets it at 5 p.m. You let in the article itself, the file should say the time in which you finished that part in. So, and also there's some things that are non-writing tasks, such as, looking at the submission guidelines, what's required, you have to include an acknowledgement section. You have to include the, statement about ethics or something about the grants that funded that project. What are the guidelines and what do they indicate? Who is the corresponding author? And find ways, which are the best ways for tracking who contributed. Some people I don't like Google Documents personally. Other people just do everything in Google Documents and archive things there and comment there. And respond to the editors, respond to the reviewers in a very professional way. Be honest, be genuine. Meina does a good job in thanking the reviewers before she tells them how she addressed the comment. She used very polite language. I agree with it. Just try and say, I agree with this part of what the reviewer said. This is the change that was made. Thank them for making those points. If you do that, I find that you can go from, typically, I was getting maybe 30% of what I wrote in my early days accepted for publication. Now it's getting near 100%. And I think one of the main things is I just keep at it, keep responding to the reviewers, tell them what I did. Grit and determination win the day, fortunately or unfortunately. Build in time in your planner for when you're going to revise it. Meina and I got an article today to revise from one of our colleagues in Korea, and Meina says she'll revise it. And I was ready to revise it tonight, but she's going to do it first, I think. And so we have to figure out who's going to, what day are each of us going to work on it, right? And try and build the same kind of voice within the document, consistent voice. Meina?
Thank you, Dr. Bonk. So continue with the research collaboration. I would like to explain more why we want to work on collaboration with others. So the first important part is that working with different researchers in a project can improve the quality of the research. Because sometimes from one researcher's perspective, you may ignore something, or with different eyes or different expertise, you can improve the entire quality of the research. And also you can extend the research relationships and network. Building through working with others, you can get to know more about each other, and also you can expand your research collaboration in the future as well. The third point for why we want to collaborate is to foster interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research. For example, for my research, I may focus on how to improve computer science or engineering students' self-directed learning in online settings. So, but I may have limited knowledge on computer science specific areas knowledge. So I may have to collaborate with professors or colleagues in this field. So this is important of the great opportunity to foster interdisciplinary collaboration. And also you, as we mentioned, you can share your expertise and knowledge, and also the another reason is to enhance scientific and publishing productivity. In one research, of course, you will divide the labor of the work, as Dr. Bonk has mentioned. So this could enhance the publishing productivity during a certain time. The last one is to accelerate dissemination of findings for community benefit. For example, I collaborate with Dr. Bonk a lot on research projects, and if people search some articles from Dr. Bonk, they may see that I have publications together with Dr. Bonk, and then they may kind of read this kind of serious research published by Dr. Bonk, and then my research project also be viewed by others. That's how you can accelerate dissemination of the findings of community.
And you know, the person in Korea I mentioned from Indiana 17 years ago, it took her 16 years to find a tenure job. In the past 2 years, she's gotten 11 publications with me alone. She is just on a tear, and she's following many of these guidelines. Her name is Min Young Do, and Min Young and Meina and I are working on a current paper for a special issue of Online Learning Journal. So we're hard at it. Meina?
So how can we build research collaboration? I have already touched base a little bit about this. Dr. Bonk has mentioned a bit about this. So first is to identify the skills that you can offer. So reflect on your own skills and see what kind of skills you need from your collaborators. And also try to find the collaborators, see who are the persons who have the expertise that you need for your project. And then if you don't know this person, you can introduce yourself. And at the beginning, when you email this person, possible collaborators, you can set expectations at the beginning and let each other know who will contribute to which part, the authorship, as Dr. Bonk mentioned, and also leverage tools for collaboration. There are different collaboration tools like Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Doc, like Dr. Bonk doesn't like Google Doc. So to find some collaboration tools that all the collaborators like, that you can work together, and also keep communicating with each other through the project. So maybe at the beginning you set the sequence of the authorship, but during the project, the contribution to the project may change, so the authorship could be changed in the end. Then you can keep communicate with each other. And also when you try to build new collaboration, contact others, and maybe other people will reject your request to collaborate with them, and then that doesn't matter. You can find other collaborators, and don't be discouraged by not being accepted by others for collaboration.
Yeah, that's a key point. You can be discouraged. Just don't be discouraged for more than a few days or more than a day. It's okay to be discouraged. You should be discouraged. It was rejected. You shouldn't be, just nonchalant about it, but at the same time, don't let it control your life and who you are and what you do. Just use it as a yardstick for your areas that could be improved. How could the paper be improved? Look at it as a way to a challenge. Look at feedback as a challenge that you can overcome and address. Meina, by the way, your monitor only cuts off your head. You might want to lower your monitor down a hair a little bit. So sometimes you have to contact the editor. I know the editor of many journals. This time I didn't know the editor. I contacted her because Asia Pacific Journal of Ed, the article was sitting for so long. It just, I think it had gotten lost, and they didn't communicate with us, and it was coming out in the next issue within a week. It took the stress down for my colleagues who had been working real hard on the paper, had been sitting for a long time. Just reach out to them. What happened? We know the article was accepted, but it's been a year or something, So sometimes you have to reach out. You can't just, you can't reach out all the time, but find a happy medium between asking too much of an editor and being nonchalant, not asking enough. You have to be assertive, not aggressive, I guess is the word that to use. You have to be assertive and professional. If you are assertive, you are planful, and you reach out in a polite way to the editors, you wouldn't believe how often your article was one of our, actually for a special issue, it got great reviews, but was lost within the special issue process. And we reached out and the editor said, wow, that's a great article. I just lost track of it. And it got published, So you never know. Don't think it's always a problem on your part, a low quality article on your part. Sometimes the editors have messed up. Sometimes the editorial system is so slow that they can't match up a reviewer for the articles. And it takes a long time just to get reviewers, let alone get them reviewed and get them in. And sometimes you have to say to the editor, it's been reviewed, we've made all the changes. They're very light, there are very few changes, and they don't necessarily need to send it out again if you can convince the editor that you've addressed everything. And that could speed things up too. Just giving them a table, a 2x2 table. Here are the problems and here's how we address them. That will go a long way with getting it accepted. So in a polite way, create the revisionary table. Sometimes you have to have an easier journal. Meina and I and my former student Merve, we said, well, the article wasn't getting out in several other journals. We submitted to Contemporary EdTech. It's not a great journal, but it's an open access journal. So anyone can read it. We can share it with anyone. So sometimes the open access, it's a good journal. It's got a great editorial board, but it's not a top tier journal. And we were happy with that. Not totally happy. I'm sure we would have loved it even better. Sometimes you're invited. There was a book when I was in Dubai called 20, and I was helping people in Dubai and Abu Dhabi run conferences, and they ran a series of conferences from the higher colleges of technology. When the higher colleges of technology got to be 20 years old, they did a book called 20. And they had articles from President Clinton and all sorts of people that were famous in this book. Wow, I want to be in a book like that. So I wrote to my friends, Arthur Schlesinger, Jimmy Carter, Kofi Annan, and Queen Noor of Jordan, and other folks in this book. And they says, okay, we'll get you in the next book. Next book, it came out 2 years later. It's called 20. The first 22 years of the higher colleges of technology. And I got this in here. I think Al Gore has a chapter in here. So I could share this with my mom, and with my auntie. Nelson Mandela has an article, and other things. So yeah, sometimes you just get invited, or sometimes you have to ask, hey, how can I get in that? So this article that came out last year, 2 years ago, called Pandemic Ponderings, 30 Years to Today, Synchronous Signals, Saviors and Survivors, is all about the use of synchronous tools like Zoom over the past 30 years. And my friend Samna Dude down there at the bottom, he invited me to write a piece. He didn't say this article, he just wanted an article reflecting on the pandemic, during the pandemic, for the journal Distance Education, which is a top tier journal. He's been the editor for a long time. So sometimes you're just invited, you hang out with the editors long enough at conferences and they invite you. Get to know them. If you know the editors, so sometimes they ask you to do too much and you have to tell them no. Rebecca Schulman came back with another article about how to address reviewer comments. And she says she labels things as level 1 is easy. Level 2 is going to take a couple hours. Level 3 is going to take a lot of time for all the comments that the reviewers made. She starts with the easy ones. I start with the easy ones. I bet you Meina starts, right? Meina, do you start with the easy ones or the hard ones?
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. She does them all. So start with the easy ones, and then your brain can focus on the harder ones. You can build momentum. You use starter text, save starter text. When you delete ideas from an article, when you have to take a 9,000 word article, make it a 6,000 word article, you've got 3,000 words to delete. Save the 3,000 words and put them in a file called save text or whatever you want to call it. You wouldn't believe how often that comes in handy. Use text from a conference proposal. In fact, the text from this today that I shared with Manisha, I'm going to use to submit a proposal for EdMedia tonight for a conference in New York next month. Use proposals, use grant proposals. conference proposals, speaking proposals, everything, book proposals, use that starter text. You've not published that proposal anywhere. You can use that text somewhere else, okay? So I'm writing in a blog sometimes. I use that blog post as starter text. Even if it doesn't end up in the paper, at least it got my brain started. Again, step away from the delete key. Don't do delete, delete, delete. And if you get on a hot streak, I've been on a hot streak lately, we have to reflect on why have you been successful during the past couple of years? What's different? I pinched my skin. I'm the same person. It's still got the same skin flexibility, but what have I done differently to get more journals to accept my articles? Well, one, I've got really great colleagues like Meina and Meina and other people to work with. Number two, I'm planning out what articles. I'm looking at what's in the queue, what's coming up, what I've gotten accomplished, what I've done. I've clarified my role. I've clarified the goals that we have for that article. I celebrate the good things in the publications and the good luck. I don't cry too hard, too often, too much on the bad luck. Meina, you want to add to any of these things? It's a long list of, you've got other reasons why you've been successful. These are my 10 reflections on why I've been having a lot of things published during the pandemic.
Yeah, I agree what you just said. Like, for example, when you collaborate with others, make sure you have everyone have the clear roles and keep reflect on your research and writing. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about our writing space for a minute. I'll let Meina go first, and I'll show my writing space.
So I think writing space contributes a lot to the productive writing as well. So this is a writing space at my home. So that's how it works. I usually use my laptop and has a monitor, big monitor, so that I can work efficiently. And at my office, I also have a big desktop and have the laptop. That's pre-pandemic. So right now I'm working at home primarily. And then collaboration tools that we mentioned before, there are different tools that you can use for organizing your collaboration space or organizing your literature, like Mendeley. Next, please. So this is about the goals that we talked about before.
And I've got goals all the time I'm writing down. Humans are goal-driven creatures. In December, I saw that it's possible to have 10 articles go out for review, research articles, because I have 11 research teams, 2 in Singapore, 2 in Korea, 1 in China, 1 in Turkey, and a lot in the US. And I said to my teams, I could get 10. So I had this goal, this mental goal for myself. In 2020, I had a goal of 20 articles in 2020. And I was driven to meet the darn goal. So you have to have goals, you have to have plans, you have to redo those goals, make them flexible. You're not going to always meet things and so forth. Meina?
And another important thing is to have writing partners and mentors, as I mentioned before. So these are all the pictures taken in the ACT that they are all my great partners and mentors, Dr. Bonk, Dr. Lin, and Dr. An, and Dr. Kwong.
Many people she's partnering with, and I am too. I've made a list. I have also made a list of who I've partnered with over the years, since my first article published to my last one. And it's interesting to reflect on how your partnerships have changed over time, who you're collaborating with and what they've gone on to do, what the others you worked with have accomplished later on after working with you. This is part of one of my offices. This is my main office at home. You can see I have a hydraulic desk, a $4,000 desk that goes up and down to save my back pain. I have another desk to the left there. And I've got it's all hydraulics. It looks onto a forest. I can feel calm, but I burn through keyboards. I bought little letters that can stick on for the keyboard, so I don't have to buy new $60 keyboards all the time. I just buy letters that go on top. I love paper, and my daughter's picture sitting next to the paper. But yeah, I'm one who likes to print and read. I don't want to go blind, so I like editing articles on the computer. I definitely always edit on a computer. But dissertations and long things to read, I print out. So it depends on the length of something, of what it is. and I have a second desk. I have a glass of water or a juice or a tea or a beer if it's late at night. I have writing space all throughout my basement, spread out. You see all the papers on my couch, on my pool table, everywhere, behind me, in front of me. I have bookshelves and so forth. And I can go down to the river, down to the creek, and read down there as well. And then I have good colleagues and mentors. One of my mentors and good friends, Brian J. Ford on the left there, has written 30 books. And so he can give me advice about book writing and publishing. He's a professor at Cambridge, but he never got his undergraduate degree. He's so smart, he didn't even need any degrees to be a professor at Cambridge. He's a microbiologist. He's written books on the future of food, on the intelligence of a single cell, on how dinosaurs were aquatic creatures, on secret weapons of Nazi Germany. He was the head of Mensa in the UK. He was a former BBC radio personality. He's really, and a game show host. He's a real interesting guy. The other person on my right is one of my former students, Michael Thomas, and he and I talk about, our future plans and articles all the time. In fact, today he wrote me to get suggestions for something he needed. So having good colleagues that make suggestions and share things with and discuss what you've done and so forth. Again, plan things in a planner, focus by learning how to say no. I have a list of 10 ways to say no, such as if someone asks me to write a tenure and promotion review or a green card letter, I might say to them, I've done my quota already for this year. I've finished my quota. I can't do any more this year. So you're not saying no necessarily. You're saying that I've met the maximum, or my department chair won't let me do that at this time. I have to focus on getting something else done. So track things, and I track things on slips of paper in my pocket. I have calendars from the Dalai Lama, daily quotes, and on the back I wrote down my plans for the day. I look at what articles I have to review or revise coming up. And when Meina or Min or someone writes to me, I try and be responsive immediately. And at the end of the year, as Meina said, at the end of the year, I put down my new goals. I put down what I accomplished and what I will accomplish. In terms of writing tips, I try and save everything I'm working on the desktop in a file called work, and then May 2022. It's a work file for June 2020, July 2022. So I have everything I can go to that one space for every article I'm working on for that month or that set of months. As I said, I take screenshots of current articles and save the URLs and the dates so I can go back to them. I've created a file on my desktop called Articles to Read, and then they're topically based on AI and VR and augmented reality or future of education. I have on my desktop all these articles that I might assign in my next class, for instance. I listen to books in my car to learn new words. I'm constantly trying to learn new words. I'm trying to improve my vocabulary because I didn't score well in vocabulary on the ACT or on the GRE. So I'm always trying to improve that. And I look for the news. I look at movies for examples that I can use in my articles. I look for stories. I look for points of interest. I save every document twice because one might get lost. I'll send a document to myself as an email in case my computer hard disk crashes at night. If I worked real hard during the day, all day, I send a copy of the document to myself. I ask my friends to read my papers sometimes, a first draft, second draft, third draft, fourth, fifth. I save all my publications by year that I publish them in. So if someone asks me for a copy, I can go back to that year and find that article relatively fast and send it to them. As I said, I use Collins Thesaurus because it's got a tremendous amount of words that I can use, all hyperlinked. Some of you might find Webster's or your dictionary or something else to be easier or better, but that's the one I like. And I do use Wikipedia to look up historical information to get starter text, if you will, to lead me on a path, potentially. I might move about when I write to another room so that I'm not just standing, I'm not just sitting, I'm moving about so I don't get backaches or my feet might get sore and so forth. So avoid sitting too long because that can kill you, as we hear from the healthcare industry, the wellness industry. I might print out articles, some of the articles, and that I might plan to read on a plane or on a train or someplace else, have them available for a trip, then I might print them out. I might sort papers on my pool table for themes on issues and so forth. You might have other ways to sort through things. Be optimistic more than pessimistic. You know, that is maybe the most important point of today, of all the things we're saying. Be optimistic more than pessimistic. If you change your tone, your mindset, your attitude about writing, be one of sharing your knowledge with the world and the possibilities for that, rather than saying, oh, I'm always going to get rejected, or it's not going to work, or take the no's out of yourself and put the yeses inside. And find your writing space that works for you. These are the technologies that I like to use, like Dropbox I used for today's talk. It's up there. You can all download it. Go to, if you want it, it's at trainingshare.com. Trainingshares, one word.com. Go to Archive Talks. You'll find the Dropbox link in there. So it's an easy way for me to share. I save, as I said, slips of paper and starter text and checklists. All these things work for me. I look for journals that, you know, will work for me. I think I had this slide up already. So now we're going to go to 15. We got about 5 minutes left. 15 writing tips, as if we haven't given you enough so far. Meina, do you want to comment on anything there that we mentioned?
No, I think you have covered a lot. Thank you.
So I'll ask again in the chat window, any comments so far that struck a chord with you? Anything that we mentioned that you found valuable so far? We're going through a lot of things rather, but I think there's a good assortment of them. You know, can you share the slide before the journal selection slide again? Okay, sure. Collaboration, okay. Write for specific tasks for, yep. Mm-hmm. Ways to say no. So do create a list of ways to say no. And that's true, that's genuine, that's honest, and of 10 ways. And I have a second list of dishonest ways. I never try and use the dishonest, but it's always available. So I have 20 ways to say no available for me. Such as a dishonest way might be, I'm spending the summer with my mother. I can't, you know, and my mother's passed away. She's not alive. So that'd be a dishonest way. Try not to use the things from the dishonest list. Try to use the honest side. Thanks for coming, Tammy. You know, it's great to have you with us. So we need to move back a slide or two. Someone has requested that we move back a slide or two, and that is right there. That slide, I assume you mean. You know, this is the number 4 is an important point in there. Clear your email and to-do list. When you can clear your email and all the little things that you have to do, your brain can focus on bigger things, right? Your brain can address the bigger aspects of things. So try and do, you know, if you have a checklist, you know, you don't have to be concerned. It's on the checklist. You know, if you annotate the document with what you need to change, you don't have to worry about that so much. If you have an annotation, or if you have the colored red text or highlighted text, if you make notes to yourself, then your brain, the cognitive load, can be focused on other things, on creativity and creative ideas. So mark days in the planner. So a lot of these things we've said already. So mark your time in the planner when you're going to work on something. And then make a list of your colleagues and potential collaborators and who you might want to work with. There are 7 billion people, Meina says, on the planet. You only need to find 25 people during your career to work with out of that, or 100 or 10. You don't need that many. You don't need to work with people who lie and make up stories, and, you know, honest people, genuine people who are good-natured and good-hearted, and you'll get stuff done. Create that flexible timeline of Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. If you're doing a dissertation, think about, you know, or a master's thesis, think about what you could get out of those and submit those things. and change the timeline once in a while. Be flexible. Think about the publishing potential of everything you do, every grant proposal you write, every book review you do, every strategic plan that you write, every tip sheet that you create for somebody else, every tutorial you build, everything that you do has a publishing potential somewhere. Some have low publishing potential, some have high, but they all are publishable somewhere. And save that starter text to overcome writer's block that you might have. Find that starter text, right? As Tom Hanks did in that movie. What was that movie that he was in there? Someone want to chat, type in the chat window. Was it Sleepless in Seattle? Our friend from Seattle might know. Always scan the reference section. I think the first thing I do when I print something out is look at the references and what journals are other people publishing in? Where are people going to disseminate their work? And avoid SSCI fixations. Even if you're from Singapore or Korea or Taiwan, where you can only get promoted with SSCI, you still will have some articles that are not in Social Science Citation Index. Be willing to be a third author, second author, fourth author, fifth author. It's okay. Or you're going to spread yourself too thin if you're just first author. If you've got a conference proposal and you're going to write a paper from it, it's best to try and finish the paper before the conference than after the conference. Because once the conference is over, you start going to the next conference and the next conference, which I did. I think that this was the biggest problem I had early in my career. I'd write the proposal, get the conference paper accepted. It'd be a 4-page, 5-page, 6-page conference proposal. I'd never finish it. I go to the next conference. And it was a lot of fun meeting my friends at conferences. I never was published. Think about something creative, whether it's a creative title like 22, 20, the world is open. And I can do open with everyone around the world. The word's not closed. So if you get something creative in the figures, in the title, in the charts, some creativity, that should be the goal for everything you publish, some aspect of creative aspect. Try not to give up. Try not to give up. Even if you've been rejected 5 or 6 times, try it for the 7th. If you're rejected on a journal article, 6, 7, 8 times, maybe you do have to move on to another one. But typically, both Meina and I have found that grit and determination win the day, ultimately. Meina, do you want to comment on any of the first 11 here? We have 4 more.
Actually, I don't have any comments, but I want to comment like the last one you said not to give up. So sometimes you may have a lot of things to work on and some project may be postponed, but then you can always resume it and keep working on it.
Thank you. Be polite. Meina is really good at this, saying thank you, being polite, gracious about the reviewers. I mean, they spent time reviewing it. It took them time to do. It took the editor time to read the reviews and send it back to you. Even if it, was months later, they still took the time. So thank them and be polite. You'd be surprised. The odds of getting accepted go up, I think. Now, I don't have a study or statistical data, but I've published nearly 400 articles, 140 journal articles. And I find that I'm more likely to get published if I'm polite, if I'm sincere, if I've addressed all the comments and so forth. Recap the reviewer points in the 2x2 table. Recap them, tell them how you address them. And you don't have to address all 100% of the problems. I find that you have to address 90% approximately. If there's something really, really hard, if you address all the rest and you can point out how you couldn't address the 1 or 2 other things or 4 other things, sometimes the reviewer will give you a pass and say it's okay. So don't get fixated on addressing everything. You want to try to address everything. Sometimes it's accepted without addressing everything, and that's great. That's great by me. You've saved time and it's a more efficient process to address 90%. Make that the goal, not 100%. If you make 100% your goal, you'll never resubmit to the publisher. You'll be stuck fixated on the one thing you didn't do. So again, you could address it in a small way. Share your publication efforts, on Facebook, ResearchGate, academia.edu. LinkedIn, share with your colleagues. If there are open access articles, even better. Increasingly, journals are saying, Dr. Bonk, thank you for publishing in the Journal of Technology and Education, blah, blah, blah. For the first 45 days, it's free to the world. You can send this link to anyone. It will not blow up. So there's your chance to take an article that would be behind a paywall. And for the first 45 days, it's free to anyone. Send it to all your friends and let them download it and share with their friends. Or they might say, in the Journal of Computers and Ed, we're going to first 50 people who download, it's free. So send it to your favorite 50 people and let them download. They get the first 50. Celebrate with your friends when you publish. 10 ways to make sure your writing happens. This is an article by Christine Tully in Inside Higher Ed right before the pandemic. And so I just point out some of these things that she had in an article. We've run out of time here, but I'll flip through and see if there's something that's important here. She says you have to identify the start and end of your day. When are you going to start writing and end writing, and block in your planner? And we've been saying that all along. And I've got a little hummingbird outside my window right now, distracting me, staring at me. Briefly revisit the writing. You're writing 2 or 3 times during the week for 5 or 10 minutes. Outline your work, re-outline the work, put in a table of contents. Remind yourself of the big picture of where you're going and where you're headed prior to writing. Create the plan, create the schedule, create the table of contents. Map out the writing the day before, the chunks that you're going to be addressing. Carve up the writing into blocks or chunks that you will tackle the next day. Ease into your writing by reviewing your previous day's writing, your plans or your concept maps or your flow charts or whatever. Reread your notes before starting on the project. No writing is sometimes writing. Sometimes you're thinking. Sometimes you're stretching your brain, just thinking and relaxing. Rereading. Set a timer. So I've been setting timers for like 15 minutes and power read or power write, and just to get me in a flow. You don't have to do that, but you might do that. I got a timer right there. And I can set this timer for 15, 20 minute, 30 minute blocks. Save busy work for the end, she says. I don't necessarily always agree with her. The little reference things, I sometimes fix those first and get them out of the way. She says to do those last. Yeah, you can do either way. Close out the project, map out and get ready for your next writing session and what you're going to do next. Developing the writing day. Find a way to click into your writing on your writing day. Establish the writing rituals, the habits. For me, it's bringing strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, carrots, celery on a plate, and I put them next to me at the table, so I know I'm going to eat healthy food during the day. It's really important to me. I'm down in the basement, so it takes a long time to get up to get bad food. So I take the good food with me down to the basement, and that way I only can focus on at the end of the day, I might have a dilly bar or something else, but throughout the day, I try and have it that way. I'll skip that. What do professors do during writing sessions? Post-it notes, brackets, highlighting your text. I think I'll skip this one. I've mentioned some of these things. What if we do not feel like writing? She says, tell yourself you will only write for 5 minutes just to get you started. Take a picture of your ideas on a whiteboard. Have those whiteboards, pictures available to you to get the starter text, to get things going. Buy a standing desk, buy a cycling desk, so you can be working out while you're writing. I'm not sure if I would. Those are some, anyways, we've gone a little bit over time, but find joy in your writing. Find some happiness in your writing. Find some health. I have my tea sitting next to me. I have my celery and so forth. Decide who you're going to write with. Who are your writing partners going to be? And we've got our writing partners. You'll have your writing partners that will help you be productive and so forth. So Meina and I just mentioned at the end a book called Transformative Teaching Around the World. And it's a bunch of stories of visiting scholars and former students who have gone back to their countries to use the content of a course that we taught on critical and creative thinking and collaborative learning. They've written short 1,000-word stories, 2,000-word stories of how they're using the content in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, China, Saudi Arabia, Cyprus, Korea, Rwanda, all around the world. And this just came out. And this is a book of stories, again, for teachers, outstanding teachers. Most of these people were Fulbright educators, and they got awards, and they came to Indiana University as a Fulbright scholar. And so every chapter in the book has the author, their bio, and then their story, and some questions at the end. I'm kind of fading out on my camera here. Sometimes my camera does that kind of thing. So we have chapters from India, chapters from New Zealand, Finland, and so forth. And this is a book for multicultural education, a book for inspiring people into teaching, a book for reflecting on teachers as a professional educators, right? My former dean wrote the introduction, Meina and I wrote the preface, and then we had people write about, you know, their personal transformations as teachers from Mexico, Botswana, India. We had talked about innovative education from Thailand, India, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand. Teaching with technology from Singapore, Morocco, China, Cyprus. Pandemic practices from Singapore, India, Korea. English education from China, Thailand, again, China, Korea. Active learning from India, New Zealand. This is a tire garden, by the way. Finland. Global education from Taiwan, Finland, Mexico, and overcoming challenges from USA, Bhutan, Papua New Guinea, Costa Rica, Rwanda, Yemen. And then we wrote the closing. My current dean wrote the afterword. So this is the book, Transformative Teaching Around the World. Hopefully you can, you know, look at that, write a book review, whatever. Again, remember, I have a free book called Adding Tech Variety. You can download it at techvariety.com. And Meina, you have any final comments before we end here?
I don't have any additional comments. So if you have any questions for us, you can email us. Thank you.
So on behalf of all of us in this learning circle, I'm very grateful that you presented, and I hope you can present again. We've gone over time, so I need to conclude this session, and we'll send the questions to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.